Do you see the woman climbing the mountain? Every time she grabs one portion of the mountain and pulls herself up, she excludes the possibility at that moment of grabbing another portion. And in making that decision, she affects her own destiny in that moment. Indeed, that decision is part of her very actuality in that moment. At least that's the idea we want to explore in this lesson, Lesson 16. We want to explore the idea that decision is the very meaning of actuality. From Whitehead's perspective, every step we take in life is an act of decision. Our decisions may be conscious or unconscious. Indeed, most are unconscious. But in the act of decision, we cut off certain possibilities for responding to the immediate situation in our lives and actualize others. Even if we try to avoid making decisions, we make them. Not to decide is to decide. Now, this does not mean that we're separate from the past. As we make decisions, we are inevitably influenced by many factors that are given to us from the past actual world. The past actual world moves us and shapes us. Its events are part of the many that become one in the present moment of experience. These influences include the states of our bodies, the landscapes and waterways around us, our companions in life, the plants and animals, our friends and family members who are also our companions, of course, the social networks in which we are involved, the cultures into which we are born, and the decisions we have made in the past. All are settled, all are given for us insofar as they come from the past. And all are part of a causal network in which we find ourselves moment by moment. All are partial determinants of our lives. We are always partially determined by the past. Indeed, from Whitehead's perspective, we are partially determined by God too. God is the soul of the universe, and God is present in each of us as a guiding lure, a fresh possibility for responding to the influences we receive relative to what is possible. God is in other creatures too, as a lure for them to find the various kinds of wholeness of which they are capable. If we think of God as creating the universe, we best imagine this creativity as a continuous process in which God lures or beckons the universe into many forms of beauty, moment by moment. But we also recognize that God's own lure requires the creativity of the world for its completion. The present act of decision at the heart of each moment of experience is not fully determined by the past or even by God. It emerges in the moment itself as part of the essence of our own actuality. This has implications for theology. It means that God does not know the future in advance. God must wait and see what decisions we make. God must wait and see how we create ourselves and how the rest of the universe creates itself too. There is decision everywhere. The indeterminacy within the depths of matter is a primordial instance of that freedom that is part of human life. But it would be a mistake to think of this freedom as somehow separate from the interconnectedness of things. Whitehead writes, the concrescence of each actual entity is internally determined and externally free. What does he mean by internally determined? I learned a bit about this from a Zen master for whom I was an English teacher many years ago. His name was Keiro Fukushima, and he was sometimes called the Laughing Buddha of Tofukuji Monastery. I knew him very well, and I came to realize how free he was. Whenever you were in his presence, moment by moment, you sensed this freedom. He had a spontaneity of spirit, a great sense of humor, and he seemed to be able to face every circumstance on its own terms. When it was time to be sad, he could be sad. When it was time to be happy, he could be happy. When it was time to cry, he could cry. When it was time to laugh, he could laugh. He was inwardly free. He seemed not to be determined by the habits of the past. Every moment seemed like a new moment. So I once asked him, do you feel cut off? Do you feel separate from the hills and the rivers and the trees and the stars? Cut off, separate from friends and family? Separate from me? I knew the answer, and he immediately confirmed what I suspected. No, not at all, he said. Freedom is how I choose to be determined by everything that happens. Freedom is how I'm connected to the rest of the universe, moment by moment, including this very moment when you ask that question. So that's our lesson in Lesson 16. The heart of actuality is something like freedom, and it's how we are connected to everything else. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.